It's that time of the year again in Baltimore. The clock's ticking, decisions are looming, and the tension in the air is so thick you can practically feel it vibrating through M&T Bank Stadium. The Ravens are just hours away from trimming down to their final 53-man roster. And let me tell you, this isn't your typical preseason cutdown. This year, it feels different. This year, it feels personal. You can already sense the intensity behind the scenes. These aren't just paper decisions or names being shuffled on a whiteboard in a meeting room. These are careers on the line, dreams hanging in the balance. And for the Ravens, it's not just about selecting the best players. It's about building a roster deep enough, balanced enough, and versatile enough to chase a Super Bowl. Yeah, I said it, because that's where this team is aiming. Now, here's what's wild. For most teams, by the time they reach this point in the preseason, they've already tipped their hand. The depth chart is clear, most of the starters are locked in, and you're basically just shuffling the bottom of the roster. But with the Ravens? Nah. We're still watching legitimate battles unfold right in front of us, and John Harbaugh and his coaching staff are going to be earning every cent of their paycheck trying to figure this out. Let's start with what we do know. There are obvious locks, the stars, the proven vets, the breakout candidates who balled out all camp. Guys like Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Roquan Smith. No one's questioning their spots. But then, there's that next tier. The bubble players. The ones who've done everything in their power over the last few weeks to make a name for themselves. And some of them, man, they've made it really hard for the Ravens to say no. One of the biggest names in that group right now? Kean Martin. This dude showed up and turned heads in a big way. Undrafted. Not even signed after the draft. He came in for a rookie minicamp tryout. And now here we are. The entire fan base is talking about whether he's going to make the 53. That's not just a Cinderella story. That's a full-on Hollywood script. And when you talk about a guy making the most of his opportunity, Kean Martin is the walking definition of that. Let's rewind a bit. In the last preseason game against Washington, Martin had one of those performances you dream about as a bubble guy. He came up with a pick six, locked down on special teams, and was flying around the field like his life depended on it. Because honestly, it kind of did. That game could very well have been the moment he punched his ticket onto the roster. And it wasn't a fluke. He's been doing it throughout camp. Smart play, physical presence, consistent effort. John Harbaugh even went as far as saying he preferred Martin's vice block on special teams over the pick six. That tells you everything about what kind of team the Ravens are building. Harbaugh is a special teams guy at heart. So if you're a young corner trying to make the roster and you're making that kind of impact in the third phase, you've got his attention. But here's the thing. Kean Martin isn't a lock yet. As impressive as he's been, the Ravens are staring down some incredibly tough decisions at cornerback. Guys like Jalen Armour-Davis, Arthur Mallett, and Demarion Pepe Williams are all in that mix. And this isn't just about who played well in one preseason game. It's about versatility, special teams value, health, consistency, all of it. Meanwhile, you've got other position groups that are just as messy in the best possible way. Let's talk running backs. Baltimore is probably going to carry 4, and you already know 3 of them. Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and Keaton Mitchell, they're in. But that 4th spot? That might go to Rasheen Ali, and if it does, it's almost entirely because of what he brings on special teams. You heard that right. He's on kickoff, punt team, punt return, kickoff return, you name it. The man's everywhere. And that's how you make this roster if you're not a top 3 back. Honestly, though, I still feel like 4 running backs might be one too many. That's just me. I love the depth, and I get the value on special teams, but with as many injuries as this team has dealt with in recent years, keeping that extra body on defense or at receiver might be the smarter long-term play. Then again, John Harbaugh clearly values guys who can impact games in multiple ways. And if Ali is truly a 4-phase special teamer who can also give you carries in a pinch, that might be enough. Speaking of defense, let's look at that side of the ball, because it's equally loaded and equally confusing. You've got veterans like Jadeveon Clowney coming in late, young guys like Tavius Robinson showing flashes, and David Ohabo trying to prove he can stay healthy and become a consistent contributor. But the edge room is tight, really tight. Keeping 5 outside linebackers might sound like a lot, but cutting it down to 4 feels dangerous. Inside linebacker might be even harder to figure out. Roquan Smith is your centerpiece. Trenton Simpson just had his breakout moment with 6 tackles, a sack and a half, and a deflection that led to an interception. He looked fast, decisive, and way more comfortable than he did earlier in the preseason. But right behind him, you've got names like Josh Ross, TJ Simmons, and rookie Jay Higgins, who also showed up big time. Every one of those guys has played like they belong, and the Ravens have to weigh who helps them most not just now, but in November and December when depth starts to matter most. That's the real challenge here. This isn't just about week 1. It's about the grind of the entire season. And the Ravens are trying to build a roster that's not just top-heavy, but one that's deep, physical, and versatile. They've been snake-bitten by injuries far too often to ignore that anymore. Now let's circle back to the offensive line, because that group is flying under the radar, but it's also going to force some hard choices. I think the Ravens end up keeping 9 guys there. Ronnie Stanley, Tyler Linderbaum, Kevin Zeitler, and Morgan Moses are locked in. Andrew Voorhees is in. Daniel Falalay should be in. But then you get to the Emory Jones conversation. He's currently dealing with an injury and may land on short-term injured reserve. That actually helps the Ravens with some roster math. Because with the updated NFL rules, you're now allowed to designate 2 players placed on IR during cutdown day to return later in the year. That opens up a lot of flexibility. It used to be that if you put a guy on IR before final cuts, he was done for the year. But now, you can stash a player like Jones, let him recover, and still keep his spot open. Same goes for a guy like Adisa Isaac. That might give the Ravens the breathing room they need to keep someone like Kean Martin or Jay Higgins without having to cut a veteran and risk losing them altogether. And yes, we've seen those veteran handshake deals before. Brent Urban's the perfect example. He's not subject to waivers, so the Ravens can cut him, fill the roster with younger players who are subject to waivers, then bring Urban right back after the dust settles. It's classic Ravens front office maneuvering, and don't be surprised if you see it happen again this year. So yeah, these last few spots, they matter. They're not just end-of-the-roster filler. They're the difference between winning a game in January or watching from home. And if you've been following training camp, watching the preseason games, listening to the coaches, you know how real this competition has been. These guys aren't mailing it in. They're making life very difficult for Eric DeCosta and the front office, and that's a good thing. There's a mentality brewing in this Ravens locker room right now. A mindset that nothing is guaranteed and everything is earned. Guys like Kean Martin have embodied that all summer long. Undrafted, overlooked, fighting every single day to prove they belong. And when you've got that kind of energy from the bottom of your roster, that's when you know your team is in a good place. We've still got more to get into, including some specific roster predictions and deeper insight on which bubble guys might actually make the cut and who could end up as surprise casualties. But for now, this Ravens team, it's built to compete. It's built to be ruthless. And most of all, it's built with a chip on its shoulder from top to bottom. Now, as we shift into the final hours before the Ravens' official roster cuts are due, this is where things start to get really gritty. The vibe inside the facility? It's intense. You've got players literally sitting on edge, refreshing their phones, checking in with their agents, waiting for a call they don't want to get. Because here's how it works. If your phone rings around that deadline, it's probably not good news. If it doesn't ring, then you're showing up to the facility the next day and suiting up for one of the most respected franchises in the league. And that brings us right back to the mentality of a guy like Kean Martin. The way he handled this entire process has been absolutely mature beyond his years. When asked if he thought he had done enough to make the roster, he gave one of the most grounded, confident answers you'll hear from a bubble player. He didn't beg. He didn't overstate. He just said, "I did what I had to do. I took advantage of every opportunity one had." And that's the truth. From the moment he got his tryout contract at rookie minicamp, not a draft invite, not a signing bonus, a tryout, he has worked for everything. And the best part is, it's not just what he's done on the field. Off the field, his attitude, his accountability, his focus, it's all aligned. This isn't a guy who got lucky on one play. This is a football player who showed that he's reliable. And in Baltimore, reliability is gold, especially on special teams, especially when you're talking about the bottom of the roster. If you can fly downfield, cover punts, tackle in space, set the edge, stay disciplined, you're valuable. Period. And if you can do that while also playing solid corner, you're in the conversation. What makes his story even more special is the legacy he's carrying. His father, Manny Martin, played 5 seasons in the NFL. That's not just football pedigree, that's football identity. Kean talked about that relationship, about how his dad has guided him through this entire journey, how they talk before and after every game, how the number 21 means everything to them. And now here he is, on the verge of completing his own NFL chapter in his own way. That's powerful. That's the kind of story that reminds you why we love this game. But Martin isn't the only guy with something to prove right now. Let's talk about Trenton Simpson. This is a player the Ravens drafted with the expectation that he would eventually take over a starting role, and up until recently, some fans weren't sure he was ready. He didn't pop early in preseason. There were flashes, but nothing consistent. And then came that game against Washington. 6 tackles, 1.5 sacks, a deflected pass that turned into a pick. It wasn't just productive. It was commanding. He looked fast, he looked confident, and for the first time in a while, he looked like a Raven. He said it himself after the game. The work he put in during the offseason is paying off, and the game is slowing down. That's a huge statement. Because if you're going to be the next man up next to Roquan Smith, you have to feel the game. You can't be guessing. You have to play instinctually. And it looks like the switch has finally flipped for him. It reminds me a little of Patrick Queen, actually. Remember how Queen's first 2 seasons were up and down? Tons of athleticism, but he needed time. It wasn't until that 3rd year, especially once Roquan arrived, that he started playing like a star. Simpson might be on a similar timeline. And if that's the case, the Ravens are in very, very good shape. And while Simpson's spot is safe, not everyone around him is. Jay Higgins is another guy that's made things complicated. Rookie, hungry, and every time he's on the field, he's near the ball. That's the kind of instinct you can't teach. The question is whether the Ravens have enough flexibility to carry 5 inside linebackers. And that depends on how the numbers shake out at other positions. That's where we get into some real roster gymnastics. One of the biggest wildcards right now is the Isaiah Likely situation. On paper, Likely is one of the best young tight ends in the league. We know what he can do, but he's hurt. And while the severity of his injury hasn't been fully disclosed, there's a real chance he lands on short-term injured reserve. If that happens, he'll be forced to miss the first 4 games, but it opens up a roster spot right now. That spot could be used to keep an extra defensive lineman, an extra linebacker, or yes, a player like Kean Martin. That's the kind of domino that can change everything in the final hours. And don't forget about the IR rule change. A few years ago, if a player was put on injured reserve before final cuts, he was out for the season. Done. But now, you can place 2 players on IR right after the roster is finalized and designate them to return. That's a game changer for teams like Baltimore who have guys like Emory Jones or Adisa Isaac, talented, but not ready to contribute week 1. Stash them, keep your young core intact, and manage the roster accordingly. Which brings us to one of the more overlooked but strategic moves the Ravens make almost every year, the handshake deal. Veterans who aren't subject to waivers can be temporarily released, then re-signed after IR designations are made. That's how you see someone like Brent Urban get cut, and then magically pop back up on the roster a day or 2 later. It's not shady. It's just smart. And it's probably going to happen again this year. Now, don't sleep on the special teams side of this either. Because guys like Tyler Loopk and Jordan Stout are doing their thing, and if you ask Nick Moore, who knows a thing or two about elite special teams play, those 2 are locked and loaded for the regular season. The Ravens value special teams more than almost any other team in the league. That's not a bonus, that's a core identity. Which is why a player like Rasheen Ali, who contributes on every unit, is suddenly a real factor in the roster discussion. He's doing the things that coaches like Harbaugh, a former special teams coordinator, actually notice and appreciate. It's funny, because when fans look at the roster, most of the attention goes to the flashy positions, quarterback, wide receiver, running back. But when coaches look at that 51st, 52nd, 53rd spot, it's almost always about special teams. That's how you survive in the NFL when you're not a top pick or a high-paid vet. Can you cover kicks? Can you block in space? Can you hold your lane discipline? That's where roster spots are won and lost, in the details. And that brings us full circle to the Ravens' philosophy. This team doesn't build around hype. They build around execution, around preparation, around accountability. They want smart, tough, reliable football players. You don't have to be a superstar. You just have to do your job and do it every single rep. That's how guys like Patrick Ricard made a career. That's how someone like Geno Stone stayed in the building long enough to become a key contributor. And that's why this current wave of bubble players is so exciting, because they're cut from that same cloth. There's a phrase that's been thrown around this camp: make it hard. If you're a player on the bubble, your job is to make it hard for the front office to cut you. Make them sit in that room, stare at the board, and ask, are we really going to let this guy go? If you do that, you've done your job. Whether you make it or not, you can walk out of that facility with your head high, knowing you gave everything. And a lot of guys on this roster, they've done exactly that. Players like Jalen Armour-Davis, who needed to show consistency in coverage, or rookie corners trying to make an impact on special teams. Even depth safeties like Ruben Lowry, who has been so solid that it would be shocking not to see his name on the final list. These are the battles that matter, not just for week 1, but for the long haul. Because once the injuries hit, once the grind of the season starts, these are the guys you're going to rely on. So, as we wait for the official announcement, just know that behind those walls in Owings Mills, the decision makers are sweating every single name. Because this isn't just about filling out a depth chart. It's about finding the right mix of talent, toughness, and team-first mentality to make a real run. The Ravens have been good before. They've been close. But this year, this roster has the potential to be different. Not just talented, dangerous. In the next 24 hours, they're going to tell us everything we need to know about what kind of team this really is. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. Whispers have been circulating in the NFL world for weeks, but today the rumor seems to solidify into what could be one of the most shocking moves of the season. MICAH Parsons, the electrifying linebacker known for his explosive speed and uncanny ability to disrupt offenses, is reportedly closed on a deal with the Baltimore Ravens. The buzz began after anonymous sources hinted at intense negotiations behind closed doors, with the Ravens front office reportedly going all in to secure a player of Parsons' caliber. While official confirmation remains pending, insiders suggest that the discussions were far from casual. They involved multiple high-level meetings, strategy sessions, and a concerted effort to align Parsons' vision with the Ravens' defensive philosophy. Fans are already speculating about the immediate impact on the team's defensive schemes, imagining the chaos Parsons could unleash on opposing quarterbacks and running backs. Rumor has it that the deal might include creative structuring and contracts to satisfy both parties' long-term goals, a trend becoming increasingly common with marquee NFL talents. The chatter has ignited debates across social media platforms, where analysts and former players weigh in on how Parsons' style might synergize with the Ravens' aggressive defensive identity, blending speed, physicality, and instinct in ways that could redefine the team's overall approach to the 2025 season. The energy in the rumor mill is palpable, as fans imagine the possibilities and dream of the havoc Parsons could bring to Baltimore's defensive front. Sources close to the situation suggest that the Ravens' front office has been meticulously plotting a strategy to not only acquire Parsons, but also integrate him seamlessly into their existing roster, a process that insiders describe as both delicate and high stakes. Negotiators are reportedly balancing salary cap considerations with the player's desire for competitive compensation, while simultaneously projecting his long-term impact on team culture and performance metrics. The rumor includes murmurings that Parsons' decision-making was influenced by conversations with veteran players and coaches within the Ravens organization, who pitched the city, the fan base, and the team's historic defensive legacy as ideal for his next career chapter. Enthusiasts across online forums speculate about how Parsons' presence might alter draft strategies, free agent acquisitions, and overall defensive alignment, with some suggesting that the Ravens could pivot toward an even more aggressive pass rush scheme to exploit his unique talents. Analysts are already drawing comparisons to other historic linebackers who made similar game-changing transitions, pondering whether Parsons could redefine what a modern linebacker can do in today's pass-heavy league. Meanwhile, fantasy football devotees are buzzing with excitement, contemplating the statistical explosion this signing could trigger. The air of anticipation is thick, and every rumor, however minute, is dissected and amplified across sports talk shows, podcasts, and Twitter threads, further intensifying the speculation surrounding Parsons' potential arrival in Baltimore. With every passing hour, the story grows, feeding the feverish chatter among fans and insiders alike. Adding fuel to the fire, discussions surrounding the Ravens' locker room chemistry have emerged as a key talking point in the Parsons saga, with insiders hinting at the magnetic personality and leadership qualities Parsons reportedly possesses. According to whispers from league sources, coaches and teammates alike have praised his ability to inspire and elevate those around him, both on and off the field, suggesting that his presence could not only transform the defensive unit, but also create a ripple effect throughout the entire roster. Speculation is rife that Ravens management sees Parsons as a franchise-altering figure, someone capable of galvanizing a young core while providing a template for professionalism, intensity, and preparation. Fans, meanwhile, have been inundating social media with mock lineups, predicting how Parsons' unique skill set could be deployed in various defensive packages, from edge rush situations to complex zone blitz schemes designed to maximize pressure on opposing quarterbacks. The rumor mill continues to churn, hinting that Parsons' influence might extend beyond the X's and O's, touching aspects of mentoring, team culture, and locker room leadership. The speculation is further amplified by the timing, as rumors indicate that the negotiations coincided with other pivotal roster decisions, suggesting that the Ravens may be positioning themselves for a complete defensive overhaul. Analysts have been meticulously reviewing film, highlighting Parsons' unmatched versatility, his instinctual play recognition, and his rare combination of speed and power, all of which fuel conjecture about his transformative potential. As the rumor spreads, fans are drawn into an intricate web of what-ifs, imagining game-changing sacks, turnovers, and game-defining plays that could emerge from the addition of a talent of Parsons' magnitude, keeping the speculation alive and intensifying the buzz surrounding Baltimore's rumored blockbuster acquisition. Adding to the swirl of speculation, whispers suggest that financial and contractual maneuvering has played a significant role in bringing Parsons to the Ravens' orbit, with sources hinting at inventive strategies designed to accommodate his market value without compromising the team's long-term flexibility. Analysts surmise that front office executives are exploring unconventional incentive structures, performance-based bonuses, and multi-year guarantees to ensure that Parsons' arrival aligns with both immediate and strategic ambitions. The rumor mill further speculates on how the potential deal could influence other roster moves, including defensive backs, linebackers, and edge rushers, as the team recalibrates its defensive approach around a cornerstone talent of Parsons' caliber. Fans are abuzz with debate over how this acquisition might shift divisional dynamics, particularly in matchups against historically pass-heavy teams where Parsons' disruptive presence could tilt the balance in Baltimore's favor. Social media chatter has magnified the story, with analysts predicting that Parsons' integration could revolutionize blitz schemes, coverage rotations, and run defense strategies, allowing the Ravens to operate with unprecedented flexibility and aggression. Even casual observers are drawn into the frenzy, captivated by the thought of a defensive juggernaut bolstered by Parsons' arrival. Meanwhile, sports podcasts and online columns speculate about the ripple effects on coaching philosophy, draft priorities, and off-season evaluation, suggesting that Parsons' impact could extend far beyond immediate on-field performance. Each new rumor, subtle hint, or leaked detail only strengthens the narrative that the Ravens could be on the verge of a seismic shift in defensive identity, leaving fans and commentators eagerly dissecting every potential consequence of what might become the most electrifying signing in recent memory. Perhaps the most tantalizing aspect of this swirling rumor is the immediate excitement it has generated among fans, who are already envisioning game day scenarios where Parsons' extraordinary talent disrupts opposing offenses in ways that feel almost cinematic. The speculation extends to whether Parsons' speed, agility, and football IQ could allow him to redefine positional expectations, forcing offenses to rethink blocking schemes, quarterback protections, and running paths. Rumors circulating through local sports talk shows suggest that Ravens coaches are planning to incorporate Parsons into a variety of packages, each designed to exploit his ability to anticipate plays, penetrate gaps, and create havoc behind the line of scrimmage. Analysts and commentators are already theorizing about how Parsons' presence could create multiplier effects, opening opportunities for teammates to shine and allowing the Ravens to employ more aggressive and inventive defensive strategies. Fans, meanwhile, have flooded social media with mock highlight reels, imagined combinations of sacks and forced turnovers, and projections of weekly fantasy dominance. The atmosphere is electric, fueled by anticipation, conjecture, and the tantalizing possibility that Parsons' rumored arrival could be more than just a roster upgrade. It might represent a cultural shift within the team, a tangible manifestation of ambition and dominance that resonates far beyond the confines of the stadium. Every new detail, every insider whisper, and every speculative scenario keeps the rumor alive, generating an almost feverish excitement that suggests the NFL landscape could be on the brink of a dramatic and electrifying transformation. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.